Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Getting Your Network Ready for Remote Work. This is an installment of Remote Works, a Citrix virtual series examining the best practices, lessons learned, and realities of the remote work world. My name is Darlene Jaramillo, and I will be your host for today's presentation. Our featured speakers for today are Valerie DiMartino, Senior Product Marketing Manager for SD1 at Citrix, and Derek Thorslund, Senior Director, Product Management for SD1 at Citrix. Before we get started, let me cover a couple of housekeeping details. We will have a dedicated question and answer session at the end of today's presentation and invite you to submit your questions at any time during the presentation using the Ask a Question window in the webinar interface. Also, this event is being recorded, and a link to the on-demand version will be sent to everyone in a follow-up email. With that, I will now hand it over to Valerie to start the presentation. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining. So now that we've all been really working from home for a bit of time now due to COVID-19, we should take this opportunity to go to our network teams and our IT teams and assess what's working, what's not working, see if users are happy and productive working from home, and really assess how this will impact the future ways that you're going to have your employees working, where they're going to work for, and how your business and your IT teams can support them. And in order to keep employees productive while they're working from home, you may need to look at adopting new technologies, both in the short and the long term. While we don't know how long this current situation will last or how you're going to approach working from home in the long term, we do know that many digital transformation initiatives are being rapidly accelerated. So the question really becomes, have you thought about how this impacts your network? So there are several obstacles I want to cover for both workers and IT that they're facing in this really unprecedented move to work from home. Many households really procure only enough broadband capacity for leisure activities, including streaming and internet browsing. And now with all the users from a business working from home and all the households online all day with family members and neighbors, they're all competing for that same bandwidth. And in addition to that, many of the applications that are being used for both work and school are bandwidth-hungry applications, which are putting further strain on these networks. Many of us also take access to broadband for granted in some cases. This means that cost and location may be prohibitive for some users, and in rural locations, this can result on actual dependence on smartphones for their home internet needs. In traditional enterprise environments, you would normally control everything from the quality of your WAN links, the positioning of your Wi-Fi, the segmentation of your network, and even the physical access that the employees have. But at home, clearly the level of the workplace environment control does not exist. And what's also happening is that some employees may never have worked from home, and their view of the internet may be primarily about access to Fortnite and Netflix, and not to critical business applications. Now, some kids might think Fortnite is a critical application, but I'm sure that businesses don't agree. So now that your workforce is working from home, security also must be top of mind to the enterprise. Hackers are out there trying to exploit this new opportunity, and having that control for security in this new way of working is very important because the attack surface has really expanded just overnight, and remote workers could now be the entry point for cyber attacks. So home networks are particularly susceptible to cyber attacks like phishing attacks because they lack that enterprise-grade security that you have in your data center. And you might also have the untrained human element, which is not practicing that cyber hygiene. So ask your employees, have you pen tested your families lately? And let's talk a little bit about the Wi-Fi network and VPNs. So these are weak points, and home Wi-Fi's really have usually poor security And then likewise, VPNs can serve to open the rest of the network to hackers because your company network sees this home worker as a trusted connection. So that's their entry point. And then what's also worrisome are these traditional VPNs. They're really complex and difficult to configure, and they really don't scale well. They were not made for having the entire workforce connect remotely at the same time. So IT may be compromising on security to ensure that workers can access their work from home quickly. So it's not just about accessing the applications as readily as possible, but it's trying to manage that security remotely and prevent those cyber attacks from getting in, whereas VPNs are kind of an all or nothing type of scenario. So again, this load going back to this entire workforce being on these traditional VPNs, additionally is going to cause congestion, lag, and poor performance in general. Scaling these VPNs is very difficult. You have to provision additional VPN gateways, which are complex to configure. And it really doesn't improve the user experience over the internet at all. So these were designed to give broad access, but not protect the user experience. Another thing is having a single internet link. It really puts users at risk for disruption. You have users streaming, gaming, and doing video and VoIP conference calls on this one network. This is where you start running into problems. So you've got latency, which negatively affects the application experience if it goes too high. Applications may take too long to share that information that they need, and then negatively impacting the call quality because of things like jitter, which is caused by varying delay between the packets. And then you have carrier outages, which Derek is going to expand upon. That can also cause call-in virtual desktop session drops, which interrupts your business. You can't look to solutions like placing an order for hundreds of endpoints, like a bunch of laptops for everyone all of a sudden to be shipped out because of costs and logistics constraints. And you're going to have to promote more, BYOD options and come up with these types of programs very quickly. Companies are increasing their Windows virtual desktops as a result, as well as Citrix virtual apps and desktops licenses, and they're looking to the cloud to gain that capacity for these very quickly because of, it scales and it's more agile. And what's happening is there's a need for that connectivity from those virtual desktop or virtual delivery agents back to, in the cloud, back to the data center where the backend servers and the Active Directories live. So that is something that needs to be procured very quickly and cost effectively. So if you look towards things like Azure ExpressRoute, this is really carrier based and it takes time to deploy and it's very costly. So it's something that you may not want to spend time waiting on doing that. You may not think that that's a good cost-effective solution for the long term. So I'm going to turn it over to Derek to expand on some of these issues.
Thanks, Valerie. So let's look at it from the perspective of the home worker. And we hear many reports from around the world of poor user experience due to home internet connectivity challenges. We hear it from banks where their financial traders absolutely must have reliable, resilient, good performance with their internet connection. We hear it from folks who are doing development, call center workers, and many other personas. And as you see on the quotes on this slide, it's been widely reported in the press. I've read articles in the New York Times, CNN, CNBC, and others that are quoted here. What we find is that the home internet connectivity is nowhere near as reliable as what companies have in their offices. Of course, it's reliable most of the time, but what gets you is those glitches where in the middle of the VoIP call or video conference, the audio packets seem to just fall on the floor and you have these gaps in the VoIP. Or when you're working with a virtual desktop or virtualized application, Network connectivity is really critical for many of the applications that we use today. And unfortunately, at home, it's not unusual to have intermittent interruptions in connectivity, to have lower capacity than you really need. And of course, these issues have been exacerbated with COVID-19 when there's multiple household members using the internet at the same time. Perhaps one or two members of the family working while there's kids at home playing their video games or watching videos, and all contending for bandwidth. And on top of that, home internet hardware is consumer grade and just not as reliable as what you find in the office. In fact, even before the pandemic, and here's a slide that dates back, I guess about a year and a half. Even before the pandemic, just going to a website that reports on outages of the internet, any particular day of the week, it doesn't matter, you'd find outages are quite common. Different parts of the country are experiencing them at different times. Here's an outage map for Comcast, not to pick on Comcast, because any of these ISPs suffer from these issues. And these result in tremendous user dissatisfaction, as we see from the comments on the right.
Right, that's a really good point, Derek. So did you all know that Citrix actually can provide you that consistent experience at scale with access to everything that your employees need to do their work, regardless of location, and you're going to preserve employee engagement and productivity, and you're going to provide the opportunity for innovation to your business during these uncertain times. So the ability to get your users connected rapidly is top of mind. You have to deliver that secure, reliable application experience, and a lot of you have the Citrix virtual apps and desktops or Windows virtual desktops, and our integration with the Citrix technology through our proprietary protocol is really going to provide the best experience for those users accessing their virtualized applications and desktops, whether in the cloud or on-premise, as well as the connectivity, as I mentioned, from the cloud back to the data center. That's essential to make sure that those applications have everything they need to run. So we have 5 key objectives we want to introduce to you. These are for business continuity, and they're for any organization, any size. And this is what we're really going to focus on in this webinar today. First, we're going to show you how we can connect your at-home workforce quickly and reliably at scale. We're going to ensure quality application experiences for every home worker. We're going to tell you how you can remain secure and compliant always. We're going to make Citrix virtual apps and desktops better for every single worker. And we're all going to do it by maintaining visibility and control for you and your IT staff at scale. To keep businesses running and your users productive, you've got to be able to scale reliable connectivity quickly. It doesn't matter if you're open if your workforce can't connect. You need to be able to ship network appliances directly to your workers' homes and pre-configure or remotely configure them with your remote IT staff. So we have these small, form factor appliances out there in the market for the home and micro branch, and they need to be simple to get up and running. They need to be designed for the critical worker. They need to be able to boost bandwidth and resiliency and be able to leverage LTE either as a fallback so as not to use excess data or as a primary link. And you require single pane of glass management that should scale for thousands of home and micro branch or ad hoc branch offices. So Derek, how can we ensure that this happens?
Well, the way to do that is to bring Citrix SD-WAN technology all the way to the home. And we do that with our SD-WAN 110 appliance. This is our small form factor SOHO appliance, small office, home office appliance. It's very simple and fast for workers to connect into the network. It's a plug-and-play appliance, and it can be pre-configured by IT or configured remotely, so that no configuration needs to be done by the user. They just plug it in and power it on. Having Citrix SD-WAN at home means you get all the advantages of our advanced SD-WAN technology. So you get the enhanced connection resilience and performance through our connection bonding technology right from the home to the customer network. So you can augment the home internet connection, cable, DSL, satellite, with the built-in LTE of the device. In fact, you can even have a second LTE connection by adding a USB dongle so that you get dual active-active LTE connection. So when you bond links together like this, you get additional bandwidth, you get a speed boost, additional resiliency, because if there are glitches on either link, the other one takes over seamlessly thanks to our packet level processing and sub-second failover. So this provides a simple and reliable and economical solution for those critical workers who really need that always-on connectivity. The 110 appliance is configured through zero-touch deployment. Our orchestrator is our administration console for pushing out the configurations to these devices in a cookie-cutter template-based approach. And so through the orchestrator, IT can manage hundreds or even thousands of home offices with the SD-WAN 110. Of course, these aren't limited to home offices. Our focus in this discussion has been around work from home and business continuity. It's interesting to note that in some cities with the pandemic, there's a desire on the part of companies to save their workers from having to commute on public transit from suburbia into the big city. And so there's a trend now for these workers instead to go into local suburban branch offices. And we're also seeing pop-up clinics, field hospitals because of the pandemic, distribution centers, warehouse, food ordering and delivery opportunities for this device as well. It's really easy to use this device in those settings. And you can deploy them in very little time to rapidly connect both your at-home workforce or these ad hoc locations to the applications that you have hosted, whether they're running in your private cloud or data center, or whether they're running in public cloud and SaaS apps as well.
Yeah, so with the home worker and ad hoc business locations that Derek just talked about, you know, distribution sites, pop-up clinics, food delivery, whatever, anything you can think of really, applications need to rely on highly available connections with intelligence to mitigate issues like congestion, latency, and capacity on the fly. The ideal work-at-home network should provide a great work experience even while family and neighbors watch streaming TV and play online games on shared broadband. And then built-in intelligence should be able to mitigate internet variability, including latency, throughput, and availability issues. If you have just a single internet link at home, like most people do, the network is at risk for disruption, congestion, and latency. As an example, a remote worker on a VoIP or video conference call requires high quality bandwidth and a lot of it to ensure that call quality. But then other household members are using that pipe for high definition streaming or video learning. So there's really no way to separate or prioritize the work traffic.
So how do we achieve this? Well, it's through a combination of connection intelligence and application intelligence. Well, with connection intelligence, SD-WAN ensures an exceptional experience when you're working with apps that are sensitive to the network, such as virtual desktops, virtual apps, voice and video applications, and some other SaaS apps that also require a highly interactive experience. So even if family and, of course, neighbors are sharing the last mile broadband bandwidth, the worker gets an exceptional experience. And we mitigate internet outages because the worker can use LTE connections as backup metered links in conjunction with their broadband connection to the internet. Technologies like selective packet racing are really ideal for VoIP and video. With this technology, we can send the same packet over 2 links, and at the other end, take the one that arrives first. This reduces jitter. It also helps to overcome any packet loss and really ensures that you get the best experience with VoIP and video and virtualized apps and desktops. So for example, keyboard and mouse and touch input from the user up to the application, as well as bidirectional real-time media. With application intelligence, we can really distinguish which apps are important. Out of the box, our SD-WAN can identify over 4,500 commercial off-the-shelf applications, and then IT can configure SD-WAN to identify custom applications as well. We have advanced QoS tools. These are bidirectional, so it not only looks at how much bandwidth you have to send, but also how much the other end can receive. And this, again, ensures a really great user experience with the critical business application.
Right, so obviously we have to touch on security. It's such a huge issue with remote workers. They really should not be the entry point for any cyber attacks during this period and in the future during any work from home initiatives that you decide to keep in your business. You know, hackers are out there lurking and exploiting these newfound weaknesses as a result of this current situation. And, you know, the business attack surfaces have exponentially increased really overnight. IT organizations are now facing higher risk from vulnerabilities due to this lack of control for the home network security. And VPNs, again, are a potential security risk for businesses as they are not granular. Phishing attacks are looking for ways to get in, to gain entry and use the account credentials, and the failure to keep VPNs patched may make them vulnerable to targeted attacks. All or nothing VPN access is not an effective strategy. And the security of your business and your applications is always crucial, but with this sudden shift, the attack surface has increased, and your business must rely on you know, many businesses like yours may be relying on legacy or traditional VPNs, which may be sufficient for certain workers, like people that are traveling, but an all or nothing approach with legacy VPN access is just not really effective today. And broadband networks don't have the enterprise-grade security that's needed for the enterprise type of organization. Again, phishing attacks from hackers can easily be mistaken for legitimate communications with users working remotely. And your business just can't afford to let remote workers be that entry point for cyber attacks. So how do we solve this?
The way we solve this is through comprehensive layered security and granular security. A comprehensive layered security strategy provides protection for your expanded attack surface with integrated application-aware stateful firewall technology. Also, we can take advantage of cloud-based security stacks, secure web gateway cloud services for traffic inspection or encryption of traffic, as well as performed to secure that data over the WAN. Traditional VPNs, as Valerie mentioned, they typically open up the whole enterprise network and lack failover or certificate management. So better than VPN is the granular security you can achieve with Citrix SD-WAN. We make it easy with per-app security policies, whitelists and blacklists for direct internet breakout for selected trusted applications. Office 365, for example, you can direct trusted traffic straight to the closest front door, so you're optimizing the user experience because you're confident those are trusted apps, whereas other applications can be directed to your security stack. And we have a zone and group-based segmentation for traffic and users. Also, we've built Citrix SD-WAN for compliance and governance. So we have centrally defined security policies for your hundreds or thousands of home workers and zero-touch deployment to enforce that security immediately.
Great. So let's move on to virtual apps and desktops. So the ability to scale these virtual apps and desktops in the cloud while still being able to access the databases and Active Directories in the data center is really something that is essential for home workers and really can make Citrix a unique choice for SD-WAN solution. It's kind of our bread and butter, although we have plenty of customers that buy without having Citrix virtual apps and desktops. So it's an attractive choice for both, but especially if you're using our Citrix technology and our Citrix virtual apps and desktops. It's more attractive for using SD-WAN versus private connections like Azure ExpressRoute. These connections, as I mentioned, they're difficult to procure, they take time, they're more carrier-based, and you may not have as much control over the speeds and things like that. So also another factor is over the long-term cost. If you're planning on eventually connecting all your branches, you probably want to look at an SD-WAN solution that you can roll out to the entire organization.
One big trend that we've seen as a result of COVID is the move to the cloud has been accelerated. We see thousands of customers who are rapidly moving Citrix virtual apps and desktop workloads up to the popular clouds like Azure, AWS, GCP. And this allows them to respond quickly and with simplicity to the needs of their home workers without the need to buy and ship thousands of laptops, which frankly might not even be available. The move to the cloud does require connectivity back to on-prem resources. Many customers want to keep their databases or their Active Directory on premises for security and trust the cloud just for compute. So this can be done very easily because SD-WAN provides that connectivity from the cloud to the data center with reliability at lower cost, as mentioned, compared to MPLS, such as ExpressRoute or Direct Connect, and with much greater agility. I mean, it's a lot faster to set up an SD-WAN than it is to have MPLS circuits put into place. We have automation in our orchestrator to set up the SD-WAN technology in Azure, AWS, and so on. And through combination of templates and the admin workflow in the orchestrator, you can set this up very quickly, even for very large networks. So you can leverage automated cloud on-ramps.
Yeah, and the last point we're going to make here is around visibility and control. So how can you empower your IT staff and your security staff to, as they're working remotely, be able to see issues proactively, be able to react to them and have some of the intelligence to do that and set that up so that it happens without them having to sit in front of the screen all day. So the slide kind of says it all. If you can't see it, you can't fix it. I'm sure, users get very frustrated if their connections get interrupted, and especially if they're working with customers, in critical meetings and things like that. So being in control of your network during a crisis like this is going to bring stability, and it's going to speed the restoration of the workforce productivity. So it's critical to provide reliable connectivity for your at-home workers, as well as apps in the cloud and the data center. And you need a solution that's going to keep you and your IT staff in control of the network, even if they're not on site, which most likely they're not. And really knowing what's wrong means that you can fix it faster. So Derek, why don't you show us some of the interesting stuff that the IT team will get out of our solution?
Right. As Valerie's highlighted, it's really important for IT to have centralized management and visibility and to be able to do remote configuration on these appliances. And so with Citrix SD-WAN Orchestrator, we give IT a holistic view of the entire network, from the links to the apps to the users, even to user sessions. So you get the visibility to act quickly as network conditions can change on the fly, and make sure you're keeping your workers up and running. It's a very graphical interface with drill down. It instantly communicates where there are issues, gives you the right information in these easily consumable dashboards so that you can see issues before they become severe problems and stay in control of the changing situation. So as we mentioned, the move to work from home has been accompanied by a move of virtual desktop workloads to the cloud. Or for some customers, virtual desktops are in fact brand new capability they're now taking advantage of thanks to Citrix offerings such as Citrix Managed Desktops, our desktops as a service offering, and Microsoft's Windows Virtual Desktops. Well, as mentioned, when you have these virtual desktops in the cloud, typically the first thing that you need is to establish connectivity from the virtual desktops back to the data center, where you might have Active Directory or various databases, or when running client-server applications, then the back-end server side of those apps is running in the data center. Using SD-WAN, you can achieve this very quickly with just business internet connections that are less expensive than MPLS-based solutions, and it's very scalable. You can easily add bandwidth to achieve your needs. Of course, the next part of it is the at-home worker. And this is where the SD-WAN 110 SOHO appliance comes in that can combine your broadband DSL cable connection or satellite with LTE, even with a second LTE if needed, so that you get that highly reliable and performant connectivity from the home up to those virtual desktops now running in the cloud, where we have our Citrix SD-WAN VPX, which is our virtual appliance. Now what happens next when I'm running UCaaS applications, Unified Communications as a Service? I might be on a Zoom call or using RingCentral as my VoIP, Microsoft Teams, etc. These are apps that run in the cloud. And these apps are really sensitive to the network. It's very critical to have high quality network connection to avoid VoIP dropouts and video issues and so on. So we could take advantage of that resilient link bonded connection from the home to the VPX in the cloud, which in turn is well peered to these UCaaS properties. Another scenario is the case where the user might not be using a virtual desktop. They're, however, using a UCaaS application like Teams or Zoom. And we can provide that reliable, resilient connectivity from the user device in the home to the nearest branch office that has the SD-WAN appliance. This can even be our low-end 210 appliance, or depending on the needs of the branch, it might be a larger device. And then we have a technology called Cloud Direct, which provides that resilient connectivity from the branch up to these SaaS properties. And Cloud Direct is very well peered with SaaS properties all around the world. Another scenario is the customer who has their applications in the data center. This can include virtual desktops and apps and other apps that are still running on premises. And of course, in this case, it's a very simple architecture between the home 110 device and the SD-WAN running in the data center, either as a physical appliance or the VPX virtual appliance.
Great, thanks. So we have come up with our list of personas and use cases for high performance, reliable connectivity needs. So you can deploy Citrix SD-WAN easily in any of these types of scenarios. There might be quite a few that we haven't even thought about. Warehouses, construction sites, offices, food ordering and delivery, etc., pop-up retail. And Citrix SD-WAN is going to accelerate that time to value for you. It's going to allow your IT organization to rapidly connect your at-home workforce or ad hoc locations to your applications hosted in public, private, and SaaS clouds at scale. And you're going to be able to achieve this for the long term. So even when the current COVID-19 pandemic closures lift and your business slowly is going back to work, back to the office, many analysts are already predicting that work from home is here to stay in a much bigger way than ever before. And you want to ask, will your employees want to return to their office if the jobs can be done remotely? Will the investments being made now carry over to result in a permanent trend? Employees may even get comfortable enough with the new mode of working that they'll ask for a business class option. So preparing your network for a broader approach is something that you can do even now during the pandemic quite easily, in fact. And we've offer a few resources, and we're continuing to develop new resources for you to get in-depth knowledge. So you can see here we've got some papers, infographics, obviously this webinar information that we've just put together on unified communications with SD-WAN, and how we work with Microsoft Office 365 in terms of their connection principles and partnership program. So please do check these out. We've got plenty of resources, and as I mentioned, there's more to come, so you can go to the link right there below. And now I think we have some time for some question and answer.
Thank you so much, Valerie and Derek. This is definitely very informative on a remote work standpoint. So now we have our first question. Can you do multiple LTE connections with the 110 appliance?
I'll go ahead and take that, and Derek, feel free to chime in. So absolutely you can. It's currently set up for that. We have a dongle as well as built-in and 2 SIM cards. So LTE is readily available, and actually in the future we're going to be offering Wi-Fi capability in the home as well. So it's a great appliance for you to just plug in and go wherever you are, even if you're moving around to different locations.
Okay, and our next question is, we're not sure we want to manage the SD-WAN ourselves, and right now we're not in the office of the data center. Do you offer managed SD-WAN, and if I want to do it myself, can I set it up remotely?
Yeah, I'll take that one as well. So Citrix offers a variety of ways to deploy Citrix SD-WAN to meet your unique needs. We allow the option to do it yourself if you have the IT staff available, or we have a network of managed service providers that we're continually bringing providers into. So then we have this ecosystem of managed service providers that you can find online on our website. And you can find partners who really specialize in a magnitude of network services for the enterprise with global or regional focused requirements. And that includes network connectivity, migration, integration, security, WAN optimization, and a whole lot more really to help you implement and manage your SD-WAN as much or as little as you need. And we can help connect you to those. In terms of, we understand that organizations, IT organizations don't have access to the data center. They're not in the office. We can do all this really remotely. We can help you pre-configure or remotely configure these 110 devices, get them shipped out to your critical users, very quickly and at scale. And we offer zero-touch provisioning to help your users just really plug in and go, get connected into the network. We offer Citrix Cloud service for that, and we also have SD-WAN Orchestrator as part of the Citrix Cloud to do all the management, orchestration, the visibility and monitoring, all from a SaaS-based platform. So everything really can be handled quite easily and efficiently in this time period where everybody's remote.
Thank you, Valerie. That was some good background. Now we have two more questions in queue. So the third one is it better to break out Teams traffic directly from the home to the O365 cloud, or to route it back to the SD-WAN on the corporate network first?
That's a really good question. There's no simple answer, although I think in general I would suggest routing back to the corporate network first, but it really depends on the geography and the topology. The reason I say that is, the biggest factor in the VoIP and video quality is usually latency, but it's not the only factor. Packet loss and jitters, these are important as well. If you break out directly from the home device straight to the Office 365 cloud, clearly you're going to minimize latency. And as I said, that's probably the biggest factor in the experience, but not the only one. So as long as you're not adding too much latency, there are tremendous advantages with having a bookended SD-WAN solution. In other words, by routing it from the home SD-WAN 110 device back to the corporate network, where you also have SD-WAN, and then using Cloud Direct from the corporate network to get to the Office 365 cloud, you have a network connection there which is much more resilient. For example, in the case of a link going down, actually the call would continue, which is really amazing. No interruption in the call. If you compare just having an asymmetric solution where you just go straight to the cloud and there's no SD-WAN at the other end, well, the user would have to reestablish the call. That could be very awkward for a contact center agent, anyone in a customer-facing role. So there's big advantage right there with having a bookended solution. On top of that, those intermittent glitches and so on that often occur with home internet connectivity, they're masked. A technology like packet racing, which I mentioned during the webinar, where we send that same VoIP packet over two links, two connections at the same time, and we just grab the one that gets to the other end first. What if one didn't get to the other end? Well, chances are the other packet did. So that kind of technology is only available when you have a bookended solution. And apps like Teams, and really, I could extend this to any other unified communications type app, VoIP and video app. These apps, the quality is measured in what's called a MOS score, which is a mean opinion score. And we've seen these MOS scores jump up considerably when a bookended solution is used. We've seen them jump up from the 1 to 3 range to the 4+ range. 5 is a perfect score. And it does really make a difference. But, the caveat, as I said at the beginning, is you don't want to add excessive latency. So it does depend on the geography of your network.
Thank you, Derek, for that. And last question is the 110 suitable for at-home emergency 911 agents?
That is, of course, a very demanding use case, but the answer is absolutely yes. When you think about these emergency services like E911 in North America or 999 in the United Kingdom, and whatever it might be elsewhere in the world, very, very critical, obviously. And like any business, they're faced with that same challenge of social distancing, difficulty with the employees, the agents getting into the call center. And so, they are really, really interested in moving these agents at home, and some of them are already doing it with Citrix technology. Often, We find E911 centers have been using Citrix virtual apps and desktops technology already. So it's very much a natural to use Citrix SD-WAN with that because of our unique ability to optimize HDX traffic, as we call it, HDX for high definition experience. And the ICA protocol, which is a key component of the HDX technology stack, the ability to do QoS as well as to have deep visibility for reporting purposes, that's also important in these centers, has been very critical. But on top of that, the voice component is really important. What I've seen is that often these E911 services have specialized custom VoIP applications, and so the ability to reliably deliver that VoIP traffic over the ICA protocol to an at-home worker is really, really critical. So yeah, absolutely. The 110 is, I think, an ideal device for these critical workers such as at-home E911 agents.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. That brings us to the end of our presentation. We'd like to thank Valerie and Derek for a very informative presentation, and also thank our audience for joining us. A quick reminder, you can check out and register for upcoming webinars and events by going to citrix.com/events. We hope you have a wonderful day.